Happy day students. Today we are going to discuss about political parties, class 10 social science democratic politics. Here is a collage of the symbols of various political parties of India, both national and regional. When we speak about political parties, the first question that comes to our mind is, why do we need political parties? If you have traveled to remote parts of our country and spoke to the less educated citizens, you would have come across people who may not know anything about our constitution and the nature of our government, but there are chances that he will definitely have some knowledge about our political parties. Parties have become identified with social and political division. You see people blaming the political party for whatever wrong that happens in the society. Now, let us know the meaning of political parties. A political party is a group of people who come together to contest elections and hold power in the government. They agree on some policies and programs for the society with a view to promote the collective goal. Since there can be no different views on what is good for all, parties try to persuade people why their policies are better than others. Once the political parties are set up, there are various functions that they perform. Now we have to remember that the political party has three important components: the leader, the active members, and the followers. Let us look into the functions these political parties perform. The first political function that these parties perform are parties contest in elections. In most democracies, elections are fought mainly among the candidates put up by the political parties. Parties select their candidates in different ways. In some countries, in fact, such as USA, members and the supporters of a party choose its candidates. Second function, parties put forward different policies and programs and the voters choose from them. Each of us have different opinions and views on what policies are suitable for the society, but no government can handle such a large varieties of views. In a democracy, a large number of similar opinions have to be grouped together to provide a direction in which policies can be formulated by the government. Moving on with the functions, parties play a decisive role in making law for countries. Formally, laws are debated and passed in the legislature, but since most of the members belong to a party, they go by the direction of the party leadership, irrespective of their personal opinions. Parties form and run government. As we noted last year, the big policy decisions are taken by political executives that come from the political parties. Parties recruit leaders, train them, and then make them ministers to run the government. Those parties that lose in the elections play the role of opposition to the parties in the power by voicing their different views and criticizing the government for its failure or wrong policies. Parties also shape public opinion. They raise and highlight issues. Parties have lakhs of members and activists spread all over the country. Many of the pressure groups are the extensions of political parties among different sections of the society. Parties provide people access to government machinery and welfare schemes implemented by the government. For an ordinary citizen, it is easy to approach a local party leader than a government officer. That is why they feel close to the parties even when they do not fully trust them. Having known the functions of the political parties, let us try to understand, do we really need these political parties? We need political parties. That is why modern democracies cannot exist with political parties. The list of function, in a sense, answers the questions asked above. We need political parties because they perform all these functions. We can understand the necessity of political parties by imagining a situation without parties. Every candidate in the election will be independent, so no one will be able to make any promises to the people about any major policy changes. The government may be formed, but its utility will remain ever uncertain. Elected representatives will be accountable to their constituency for what they do in the locality, but no one will be responsible for how the country will be run. Having decided that the existence of political parties is a must, the next question that comes to our mind is, how many political parties should be there? In a democracy, any group of citizens is free to form a political party. In this formal sense, there are large number of political parties in each group. More than 750 parties are registered with the Election Commission of India, but not all these parties are serious contenders in elections. Usually, only a handful of parties are effective in the race to win elections and form the government. So the question then is, how many major or effective parties are good for a democracy? We have read previously that China, only the Communist Party is allowed to rule. Although legally speaking, people are free to form political parties, it does not happen. The electoral system does not permit free competition for power. Such a government is called as a one-party system. There are certain countries where in United States where two parties, though many parties contest in elections, have more chances of winning in the elections. Such governments are called as two-party governments. If several parties compete for power and more than two parties have a reasonable chance of coming to power, either on their own strength or in alliance with others, then we call a multi-party system. In India, we have a multi-party system. In this system, the government is formed by various parties coming together in a coalition. When several parties in a multi-party system join hands for the purpose of contesting in elections and winning, it's called as an alliance or a front. Now, for example, in India, there were three such major alliances in 2004 parliamentary elections: the National Democratic Alliance, the United Progressive Alliance, and the Left Front. The multi-party system often appears very necessary and leads to very necessary, but sometimes it can be messy and sometimes it can even lead to instability. Having known the political parties' importance and why they need to come and how many should be there, now let us look into national political parties. Here is a list of few national political parties. In Indian National Congress, Bharatiya Janata Party, Bahujan Samaj Party, Communist Party of Indian Marxist, Communist Party of India, Nationalist Communist Party. Now we need to know that what is the difference between a national party and a regional party. A party that secures at least 6% of total votes in an election to the legislative assembly of a state and wins at least 2 seats in the is recognized as a state party. Now, a party that secures at least 6% of the total votes in Lok Sabha elections or assembly elections in 4 states and wins at least 4 seats in Lok Sabha is recognized as a national party. This is a collage of national parties of India. I told you the criteria to be a regional party. Here is a list of regional parties, some of the regional parties, followed by the collage of regional parties. Now let us see. Though political parties seem to be very powerful, they do face certain challenges. Let us have a look at the challenges faced by the political parties. The first challenge is lack of internal democracy within the parties. All over the world, there is a tendency in political parties towards concentration of power in one or few leaders at the top. Parties do not keep membership registers, do not hold organizational meetings, and do not conduct internal elections regularly. Ordinary people of party do not get sufficient information on what happens inside the party. The second challenge is dynastic succession in relation to the first one, which I already said. Since most political parties do not practice open and transparent procedure for their functioning, there are very few ways for an ordinary worker to rise to the top in the party. The third challenge is about growing role of money and muscle power in parties, especially during elections. Since parties are focused only on winning elections, they tend to use shortcuts and win elections. The fourth challenge is that very often parties do not seem to offer a meaningful choice to the voters. In order to offer meaningful choices, parties must be significantly different. In recent years, there has been a decline in the ideological differences among parties in most parts of the world. This is the list of various challenges that the political parties in India and all over the world are facing. How can parties be reformed? In order to face the challenges, political parties need to be reformed. The question is, are political parties willing to be reformed? If they are willing, what has prevented them from reforming so far? If they are not willing, is it possible to force them to reform? Let us look at some of the recent efforts and suggestions in our country to reform political parties and its leaders. The constitution was amended to prevent elected MLAs and MPs from changing parties. This was done because many elected representatives were indulging in defection in order to become ministers or for cash rewards. Defection means changing party allegiance from from the party on which a person got elected in a legislative body to a different party. The Supreme Court passed an order to reduce the influence of money and criminals. The Election Commission passed an order making it necessary for the political parties to hold their organizational elections and file their income tax returns. Besides these, many suggestions are often made to reform political parties. A law should be made to regulate the internal affairs of political parties. It should be made compulsory for political parties to maintain a register of its members. It should be made mandatory for the political parties to give a minimum number of tickets, about one-third, to women candidates. There should be state funding elections. The government should give parties money to support their election responses. The equality of democracy depends on the degree of public participation. It is difficult to reform politics if ordinary citizens do not take part in it and simply criticize it from outside. The problem of bad politics can be solved by more and better policies. We should return to this theme. Maybe we will return in the later chapters. With this, we come to the end of the chapter. Read the content that is given in the textbook. Thank you.